From the kitchen of the cabin, it's the 5 games for Doomsday review. Back-to-Base-iX paint rack. You would have to stretch credibility past Hook's law to say my father lived in better times. He spent his salad days in the 50s, 60s and 70s. We've moved on so far since then. We've won so many battles in so many areas. Yes, there are slab-faced morons who consistently wave the flag of their own hate and bitterness. They haven't gone away, and the internet has placed a megaphone in front of their face so they can be heard louder than ever, but they are in the minority. Even if the news cycle or the news feed would try to persuade you of the opposite. Most of us, we're just poor saps, scared shitless of death, trying to make the best out of a life we didn't ask for. Even the megaphone twats. Put a decent social welfare system in place, redistribute the obscene amounts of wealth produced every picosecond fairly, and have an educational system that promotes intercultural exchange rather than nationalistic and cultural ghettoization, and only the willfully contrarian will be able to complain. And we'll love them for it, because we're all so damn accepting. Watch a comedy show from the 70s, and you'll see how many battles have been won. That's not to say there aren't many still left to fight, but a urine-stained candy floss wig shouldn't make us think we've returned to the bad old days. We should be hugely proud of ourselves for all we've done. Or we could keep shouting that people with a certain skin colour are evil on Twitter. There's no doubt that my father lived in worse times than these, except in one respect. He was a painter and decorator all of his adult life. People would commission him to do a wide range of paint-based tasks at their houses, and in true 70s fashion, he would use this domestic ingress to commit act after act of marital infidelity. But that's a different story for a different time and place. Then in the 80s it started. 3 words started to bubble up like flatulence in the communal word pool. 3 putrescent words that struck fear into the heart of the painter and decorator. 3 words, 4 syllables, and the quiet of a Sunday forever shattered. 3 words that heralded the electric drill and the crack, crack, crack of the early morning hammer. These 3 words: do it yourself. Why on earth would I want to do it myself? Have you ever painted a wall or sanded a table or siliconed a window jamb? No amount of grinning male models and mowcap wearing hipsters will convince me that DIY is nothing but a black nail electric shock producing nightmare. I like watching bloody telly, and why should I interrupt the sacrosanct laziness of the weekend to grease the nipples on a ball cock? The word assembly appalls me. This is why I won't be in a room with more than 2 people. Alan was a prick and his key is even worse, and as for Philip and his screwdriver. I hate DIY. I find it frustrating, I find it fiddly and unquantifiably dull. I don't ever want to do it myself unless I can help it, and nothing will change my mind. Unless you want to give me something for free, then I might give it a go, because nothing trumps principle for me like a free gift. I want a rack for holding my miniature paints from Australian miniature paint rack makers Back-to-Base-iX, and thought this might be an opportunity for DIY to rehabilitate itself in my eyes. The large paint rack from Back-to-Base-iX is designed not only to hold your paints but your brushes in a compact set of shelves that sits on your desk. I entered the competition they were holding on Facebook to see if the organisation of my paints would encourage me to paint more. I haven't had the rack long enough to test that theory, but hope springs eternal. Also, I wanted to get the paints out of the shoebox I'd thrown them into, as they were looking rather forlorn. The rack itself is made up of a chassis with 5 stepped shelves that hold between 10 and 12 dropper bottle style paints, and it happily held my collection of 50 paints with room to spare. I was exceedingly apprehensive when the post lady handed me the parcel containing the rack. I'd been waiting in eager anticipation for its delivery ever since I'd won the competition 2 weeks previously, but now it was here, and I'd have to build the bloody thing. I have ruined so much IKEA furniture in its construction that I was convinced, after many hours of swearing and head against wall banging, that all I would have would be a few splintered bits of wood that were formerly the component parts of a paint rack. Back-to-Base-iX have produced an instructional video that even a dexterously challenged proto-human like myself could follow, so I got out the components, popped on the video, and prepared myself for urine-freezing disappointment. Honestly, to my huge surprise, I shouldn't have worried. I'm not going to go through the assembly process, as the only thing worse than DIY are the endless bores that talk about nothing else, but safe to say, after only 20 minutes, my paints were standing proudly, faces forward in their new home. I had built the bloody thing, with no errors, little swearing, and only the lowest levels of existential dread. I had transformed some bits of wood with holes in them and some screwy things into a piece of furniture with exceeding utility. I don't have huge experience with paint racks, and so I've nothing to compare this one to, but it is sturdy, looks great, and is easy enough to construct that even a person whose entire arms are made of thumbs could put it together. Bear in mind, this is not an advert, but an appraisal of something that I think is incredibly well put together, and my opinion is only slightly affected by my unerring dexterity. I still hate DIY though, with every fibre of my being. This paint rack hasn't cured me of that, but there will always be a little piece of my withered heart that will brighten when I look over at it and realise that apart from the initial ingenuity, conception, design, laser cutting, and the energy to get off my arse and realise the idea in the first place, that I made it, and there's no one that can change that fact. That is, of course, until a week from now, when I realise I forgot to put one vital screw in and the whole bloody thing falls apart. For the universe is nothing if it is not in a state of permanent equilibrium. Thank you for listening. And you can support this show by going to patreon.com/5G4D.